Coming up on Folks, we continue our look at minority businesses with a profile of Security National Bank in Shreveport. Also, an update on First Federal Savings and Loan in Baton Rouge, in existence for over 30 years. All this and more on today's edition of Folks. Hello everyone and welcome to Folks. I'm Sonya Masingale. Today we continue our look at minority businesses. Our focus is on African American owned financial institutions. On a recent trip to Shreveport, we met some of the officers of Security National Bank. Security is a young bank, and because of Louisiana's problem economy, this is not the best time to be the new kids on the block. But Security is showing signs of strength, and the folks at the bank are finding ways to secure their future in the Shreveport community. Security National Bank is a full-service commercial bank. Located in Shreveport, Louisiana, Security has been in operation since 1982. From its humble beginnings in a tiny trailer to the substantial building in which it is now housed, Security has shown some solid growth in its few years of existence. Although they've been struggling with the tough Louisiana economy, the first quarter of 1989 has been a good one. Senior Vice President of Security, Carlos Boston, has 16 years as a bank officer. He is new at Security and believes that they are on a positive track in the Shreveport community.
Well, Sonya, I think one thing that we have to keep in mind is that we are a bank. And just like any other institution that has the label of bank on it, we have services and products and so forth that we offer, and they are available to the community as a whole. And we want to be sure that we market ourselves that way from the standpoint that people know that we are a full-service bank, fully capable and functional and able to offer services to the entire Shreveport-Bossier community.
How is Security National Bank being received by the community?
There has been some change, and I think the community is aware of that. But that change has been very positive. All of that change has been for the good of the community. Security Bank basically is a brand new institution from the standpoint of the change. We are positively directing ourselves to the community from the standpoint that we will be committed to service within the communities. And with that kind of positive projection, then hopefully we will expect the community to reciprocate and actually be just as positive and excited about Security National Bank as we are about being able to deliver to the community.
Banking institutions are closing all over the United States, especially in the oil cities, and right now you're up against or competing against some very, very large banking institutions. What is going to make the difference between your success or your failure?
I think what we have to keep in mind, first of all, is banking has become a very, very competitive situation. It really has. We have to keep in mind, too, that we will have to identify our markets. We'll have to develop our own niche, so to speak, and as we do that, we'll have to really address those areas. And we intend to do that. We intend to do that and try to do it as well as any other institution. Now, you're right, there are big institutions here right now. And sometimes you have to be careful because big doesn't just always get it done. When you're developing and perfecting a delivery system, regardless of what size it is, it needs to be to the point that it gets the job done and in a very expedient and efficient manner.
One of the driving forces behind the new management of Security National Bank is Wesley Godfrey, chairman of the board.
My responsibility is to provide a return for the investment to the stockholders of Security National Bank. And by doing so, we ensure the viability of this financial institution and allow for it to provide unique services to the Shreveport community.
You're up against some very stiff competition with some very large institutions at a time when many banks are closing. What is going to make the difference between the success or the failure of Security National Bank?
The unique thing about Security is that we found a niche in the market here. We are primarily consumer-oriented, but at the same time, we participate in major commercial activities. Our niche is our ability to serve the unique needs of this particular community. That's primarily institutional accounts. We're talking about the churches. We're talking about high school principals and elementary school principals, and we're talking about the black community that's been denied access to the economic mainstream of Northwest Louisiana. We're doing a lot of franchise activities on the commercial side, and we're doing a lot of new car loans, and we're doing things for this particular segment of the community that they have not been afforded in the past. And that is, in fact, a niche that only Security National Bank is satisfying. And that, in fact, determines that we are viable and we will sustain.
Security National believes in committed personal service to its customers and a hands-on approach to banking. You are likely to find the bank officer seeing to the grounds of the bank, chatting one-on-one with customers, as well as sitting formally behind their desks. This kind of personal interaction seems to give Security Bank an advantage over larger banks.
There are certain things, too, that some of the large institutions may offer. Then again, there are certain things that they may not offer as well. Now, what we want to be able to do is realize that as a small community bank, really looking to get into the mainstream of the consumer market and offer whatever services that we can and address those, we want to realize, too, that if there are some things that the larger institutions, because of the way of their makeup and structure, if there is a runoff there for some reason or another, we want to know about that. So we will be, we'll have our tentacles out, so to speak, so as to see where are some, if there are some areas, too, that maybe some of the larger institutions are not tapping. And we're going to try to address that.
Security National also believes in giving something back to the community. This young woman is a high school student gaining experience as a security intern.
Our plans basically are to fund and sponsor some major projects in the various schools. We have adopted 3 schools: Central Elementary, Northside Elementary, and J.S. Clark Junior High School.
The officers of Security Bank believe if they can deliver good service and consistency, then the customers will be loyal. Several customers seem to agree.
I have my personal account here because this is a minority-owned bank, and I support the minority community. Anything I can do to support the minority community, I do that. And Security is a very well-organized bank, and you can't ask for better service than you can get here. And a lot of people look for, you know, that special touch that people give you, and that friendliness and the professionalism that you get here. And I think that by having a minority bank, it enhances the community. And it's nice to be able to say, well, we do have a bank that's owned by minorities. And not a lot of cities can't say that.
It provides an opportunity for black people to have a capital resource that we haven't had before. And because the capital resource can provide a number of opportunities that black people have not had resources to go in business with, this is a great opportunity for us.
Having this bank means a great deal to the black community because this bank has a sincere interest in the total development of the black community, and the black community feels like they are part of the bank. I support the bank because I believe in the total development of the black community. I've done all that I could as a city councilman to bring business to this bank, and I think that it is healthy for the Shreveport community that we have this kind of minority involvement.
Well, I do business with Security National Bank and have my money in this bank because when I look for a bank, I look for one that's going to be cordial and provide me with different services that I need. And Security has been very, very professional and really gone out of their way to make sure that they service me and the little real estate business that I have. So I've been very, very pleased with Security ever since I started dealing with them, started dealing with them when they first opened that door. So I've been very, very pleased, particularly this year.
In a much better position than we are today, that's for sure. I think all of us would want to see progress. We would want to see any institution or organization that we're associated with really progressing and pushing forward. And Security needs that just as any other institution would. Right now, this is the only location that we have. This is our main office area, and this is it. And we have in mind of being able to get things adjusted to the point so that we can branch and get more into the community, both Shreveport, Bossier, and surrounding areas as well. We're looking to grow, but we want to also grow in a way that it's positive growth, it's solid growth, it's the kind of growth that's not here today and gone tomorrow.
Well, obviously, Security National Bank is only a single bank holding company. We plan on expanding our holding company activities to include a multitude of branches within the bank. We plan on getting into finance companies, collection agencies, travel agencies, insurance companies, and the like. All of the opportunities are available through a holding company activity we plan to expand into, because we can do that, we feel, without opposition, simply because there are no competitors in the areas that we're interested as far as our niche of the market is concerned. There's a unique opportunity, and we plan on satisfying that particular opportunity.
While Security is building their strength in the northwest corner of the state, down here in South Louisiana, one of the oldest African-American financial institutions in the country, First Federal Savings and Loan, was taken under the management of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation under the joint regulatory program instituted by President Bush. First Federal has been in operation for over 30 years. Several years ago, Rob Hinton profiled First Federal.
4 months after First Federal opened its doors, it had received approximately $291,000 in subscriptions from the community. That's $291,000, representing about 1,200 customers. Now, back in those early days, the largest sum of money First Federal could lend was $15,000. But today, First Federal's assets total better than $50 million, and it has become a pillar of strength to the black community in Baton Rouge.
If it had not been for us, many people would not have been able to have homes, to have businesses. You can think back 27 years ago, you could probably come up with 1 or 2 subdivisions for black people. Now they're scattered throughout the city of Baton Rouge, the parish of East Baton Rouge, and First Federal had a lot to do with that.
The first black savings and loan was established 93 years ago. Yet First Federal Savings and Loan of Scotlandville was the first black-owned savings and loan in Louisiana and the Deep South.
Other business and professional people throughout the South, and for that matter, throughout the United States, found out that we could do it. Well, they decided that maybe we can do it too. And since that time, we have had 2 other black-controlled savings and loan associations to open in Louisiana, in the state of Louisiana. One is a savings and loan that opened about 1963 down in New Orleans. That's called United Federal. And one that just opened on the 10th of this month, had a grand opening on the 10th of this month by U Federal. So there are 3 of us in the state of Louisiana right now.
Not only is First Federal the first black savings and loan in the Deep South, but it is also one of the largest in the country.
We have grown to be the 7th largest black-controlled financial institution, not financial institution, the 7th black-controlled savings and loan association in the United States. Now we're talking about Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., large cities. And we are right here just off of Southern University's campus. And we are number 7th, and we're quite proud of that fact.
And where First Federal has seen a lot of success, like many of us, it has also experienced some pretty tough years.
We had to start off behind. So when times got hard, and many of the savings and loan associations just could not make it because the economy got completely out of control. At one time, and that hasn't been over 2 years ago, interest rates went up to as much as 21%. Not only black people, but many families throughout the United States were priced out of the housing market. There were just families who could not get housing. And not only that, but many of the associations had to do one of two things, because their bottom line was beginning to get red, and red, and red, and red. Many of them had to either merge with other associations that were strong, or they had to just go out of business. I'm happy to say that First Federal was able to weather that storm, and we feel that we are financially sound and that we will continue to be financially sound.
That was several years ago. First Federal is only one of 47 savings and loan institutions in Louisiana now under the management of the FDIC. Officers of First Federal were not allowed at this time to speak publicly about their future, but a communications official from the FDIC sent a statement saying that the purpose of the joint regulatory program is to ensure the stability of the savings and loans and eventually fund and structure a permanent resolution to their problems. Joining me in the studio today to discuss some of the ins and outs of the banking business is Sam Walker. Sam is the Assistant Vice President in the Business Loan Department of Premier Bank in Baton Rouge, and Mel Renfro. He's a Vice President with Hibernia Bank, also in Baton Rouge. Welcome to folks.
Thank you.
You gentlemen represent combined 16 years of banking experience, so I suppose you've seen a lot of coming and going, so to speak. So you're here to act as our experts in the banking field. Just to answer a few questions that the public may have about what's going on in the banking world in our oil-producing states, Louisiana in particular, since we are here in Louisiana, and we were one of the first to feel the pinch of the oil crunch. And my first question is, what does it mean when the FDIC comes over and takes over a lending institution such as First Federal? What does that mean to the consumer? Sam?
Actually, Sonya, to the consumer, there's very little worry because most financial institutions today are covered by insurance from the FDIC or from the FSLIC. Of course, there are some problems with that, and Congress is grappling with how to cope with the large number of failures that they're having right now. The thought is that they will raise the insurance premiums that are charged to financial institutions. Eventually, I would imagine that has got to be passed on from the financial institution to the consumer. So, in essence, the consumer can expect to see additional fees, perhaps, higher interest rates, perhaps. But in terms of strength and worrying about their deposits, there's very little concern.
Mel, what is this going to mean to the future First Federal now that they have been put under this particular regulatory program? Does this mean that once they're on their feet again, they get the bank back? What does it mean?
That's very possible. Normally in these type of situations, it's normally opened up, and you may have potential bidders or whatever. But right now, it's basically it's a wide open situation in reference to that. First Federal could perhaps come back and take control of the bank totally, or perhaps maybe an outside investor, whatever. Hopefully, somebody locally.
So, in other words, the savings and loan institution can be sold outside of the community.
Sure.
Once that happens.
It sure can.
There's a climate currently of bank failure in the oil-producing states. What does this mean to the average consumer?
To the average consumer, basically, I gave a little speech the other day to an organization and was telling them that Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana led the nation in bank failures last year. Texas had over 103 banks fail last year. Oklahoma had over 30, and Louisiana had, I believe, over 11 bank failures. Now, thus far, there's been...
These banks, now, are we talking banks or savings and loans?
Banks, savings, and loans.
Combined?
Yeah, combined. Okay. And thus far, there's been approximately half a dozen thus far in 1989 that have failed in Louisiana. The positive thing about that is to the consumer, there's been no loss of dollars, of course, and basically, like Sam alluded to earlier, to the general public, there's very little, to be concerned about. As a matter of fact, if it wasn't for, in some situations, a name change or whatever, and some slight personnel change, the general public would never know that there was a change, and that there was a change in the bank.
Sam, there's a lot of merging going on and a lot of very big banks now that statewide banking is a reality, and one bank can in fact hold properties in all over the state of Louisiana. What does that mean in terms of smaller institutions like Security National Bank? They're a one-bank operation. They seem to be solidly on their feet. They've had some rough times, as all banks do when they get started. But do you agree that there is still a place for the smaller institutions?
Well, the environment is becoming more competitive. The industry is, and that's nationwide. Here in Louisiana, statewide banking was allowed back in 1985. But we've also gotten into the age of regional banking. That isn't now allowed in Louisiana. Essentially, the smaller institutions are going to have to, and many of them have, carved out particular niches in the marketplace. That's not necessarily easy to do, but many have been successful at doing that. Security National, for example, you just saw where they have done that successfully.
They also mentioned that they do some work alongside larger financial institutions. What does that mean?
Well, it means that we all are in this together. We need for the industry, as an industry, to survive. Therefore, if they have a particular need for example, Fed funds, which is monies that they will need on an overnight basis from another bank to fund loans that they have made, we're in a position to loan that to them.
How did we get into the mess that we're in now in terms of banking in Louisiana, Mel? I mean, banks have been losing money left and right.
Well, a lot of it had to do with our economy. As I stated earlier, Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana, and I think if you look at those three states, and we all have something in common there, and that's oil, and that has certainly had a lot to do with it, of course, but I think when we really look further at it, a lot of it has been mismanagement and basically doing business, or just really not really making the various changes as the economy changed and whatever, but economy certainly is a large portion of it in these three states.
There's another factor, and that is the fact that Congress for quite a while had constrained interest rates. We were limited as to how much interest we could pay on certain deposit accounts. Since deregulation has been approved in Congress back in March of '86, that has made things quite a bit more competitive, and there is upward pressure on deposit interest rates. However, in years prior to that, institutions typically had found those low interest deposits to be quite attractive, and in fact had infrastructures set up such that you would have numerous branches to collect those deposit accounts. Now that we're having to pay higher rates on those accounts, the profit margins are squeezed out.
So in other words, if someone has X amount of dollars invested in a savings or whatever, that some sort of interest-bearing account, and the guy across the street is offering more money, they can just pull out their money and run across the street.
Exactly.
And if you want to keep them, you have to offer them a better return for their investment.
Exactly.
And that means less money in the bank's assets.
Yeah, it's less money, and also what he indicated earlier too about the deregulation, and basically what that means as well is prior to deregulations, banks were the only ones that offered certain type of service, checking accounts, savings accounts, certificates of deposits, what have you. After deregulation, that meant like organizations like Sears, your various brokerage houses, your credit unions, and whatever, all could offer the same products and services that a commercial bank typically used to offer, and that really changed the situation a good bit in the banking industry. Competition, and of course we offer a lot of things that the brokerage houses used to offer, and but it's basically changed it, and you've got to manage, and you've got to understand everything a lot better than you used to.
Again and again, when we profile minority businesses on folks, they complain of two major things. If they're in the media end, they complain that they have difficulty attracting majority advertisers, but across the board, I hear minority business owners complaining that it's very difficult to get loans from majority institutions for any of their business ventures. Again and again. Why is that, Mel?
Well, I think what it is a lot of times is that inadequate financial statements and things of that nature, and even now going forward, financial statements are critical, very, very critical. Having a good CPA to give you a good financial statement, and typically most of these borrowers would come into the institution and basically did not have good financial statements to really show the bank that they had the ability to service the debt, things of that nature. And now it's mandatory at this particular point. So minorities have got to get CPAs and have got to improve their financial statements. But I think it's something positive. I think that financial institutions I know are willing and are definitely aggressively seeking loans, but it's about the bottom line. They've got to meet the policies and the standards. It's no more sweetheart deals or good old boy type loans anymore in the banking industry.
For anybody?
For anybody.
Sam, there aren't two sets of rules, one for minority businesses and one for majority businesses?
Absolutely not. I have not seen any of that in recent years. Of course, in years gone by, we all know that that was there, but that's over. The industry has been too hurt by difficult economic times. And I could not agree more with Mel that the bind between a minority-owned company and the CPA has to be a tight one. I'd like to put in a plug right here for the Small Business Resource Center, which is run by Bonnie Jackson. Right. She has received a grant to assist small businesses with their financial statements, and I believe the fees are minimal. So that's one good thing in the Baton Rouge community that we have to assist minority businesses. And
I'm sure that there will be more of those springing up across the state.
Sure.
I want to thank you both for coming and talking to us about the ins and outs of the banking industry. I feel like I know a little bit more about what's going on, and I feel reassured. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having us.
We're out of time for today's program. Be sure to join us next week for another edition of Folks. Bye-bye.